My name is Lauren Brooks. I'm 31 years old, and I live in a quiet town in Ohio with my husband, Ethan Brooks. If you met us a few years ago, you would probably think we had a happy life. We smiled in family photos. We celebrated birthdays together. We waved at our neighbors every morning. But photos do not tell the whole story. Behind every smile, I was carrying a heavy heart. For many years, my husband blamed me for everything. At first, I did not notice it. His words were soft. They sounded like small complaints. I thought every married couple had little arguments. I believed love meant being patient and understanding. I was wrong. Every morning, I woke up before 6. I made breakfast while Ethan got ready for work. I packed our lunches, fed our dog, and cleaned the kitchen before leaving for my own job at a small insurance office. Life was busy, but I never complained. One Monday morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen and frowned. "Why are the eggs cold?" he asked. "I'm sorry," I said. "I made them 10 minutes ago. I can warm them up." He pushed the plate away. "You always wait too long." His words hurt, but I stayed quiet. I thought maybe he was just tired. That evening, he came home looking angry. "My meeting was terrible," he said as he threw his bag on the couch. "I'm sorry." "What happened?" "I couldn't focus." He looked directly at me. "You kept texting me this morning. You distracted me." I blinked in surprise. "I only sent one message." I know, it was enough. I looked at my phone. The message simply said, "Drive safely. Love you." I did not understand how those 4 words could ruin a meeting. Still, I apologized. "I'm sorry." Those words became part of my daily life. A week later, our washing machine stopped working. Ethan sighed loudly. "You use it too much." "What?" "You should know how to take care of it." "I only wash our clothes." "You probably broke it." We called a repairman. After checking the machine, he smiled kindly. "It isn't anyone's fault," he said. "This model is almost 15 years old." I felt relieved. But after the repairman left, Ethan looked at me and said, "If you had noticed the problem earlier, we wouldn't have spent so much money." Once again, it became my fault. Months passed like that. If traffic made him late, my fault. If dinner tasted different, my fault. If it rained on the weekend. Somehow he joked that I had bad luck. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. But inside, something slowly broke. My mother often called to check on me. "You sound tired," she said one evening. "I'm okay." "Are you sure?" "Just busy." I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to say that I felt smaller every day. But I didn't. I didn't want my family to worry. Besides, I still believed Ethan loved me. Love is patient, I told myself. Marriage is hard. Things will get better. One Friday night, Ethan forgot to pay the electric bill. The lights suddenly went out while we were eating dinner. "Oh, no," I whispered. Ethan grabbed his phone. "They turned it off." He looked at me with angry eyes. "Didn't I tell you to remind me?" I stared at him. "I thought you already paid it." "You should have checked." "I didn't even know it was unpaid." "You know I'm busy." His voice became louder. If you cared about this family, you would help me remember important things. I felt tears fill my eyes. I do care. Then act like it. The next morning, I drove to work with swollen eyes because I had cried most of the night. My coworker, Melissa Carter, noticed immediately. "Lauren," she said gently, "are you okay?" I forced a smile. "I didn't sleep well." She looked at me for a moment. "You've been saying that a lot lately." I laughed quietly. "I guess life is just stressful." Melissa reached across her desk and touched my hand. "Stress is one thing." She paused before speaking again. "But feeling afraid to make a mistake is something different." Her words stayed in my mind all day. Was I afraid? I thought about every choice I made before speaking. Every meal I cooked. Every bill I paid. Every word I said. I was always worried something would go wrong. Because if anything happened, no matter how small, my husband would find a way to make it my fault. That night, I stood alone in the kitchen, washing dishes. I looked at my reflection in the window. I hardly recognized the woman looking back at me. She looked tired. She looked lonely. She looked like someone who had forgotten how to smile. And deep inside my heart, a quiet question appeared for the very first time. What if I wasn't the problem after all? After that night, I could not stop thinking about Melissa's words. Feeling afraid to make a mistake is something different. I wanted to believe she was wrong. I wanted to believe Ethan was just under pressure. But every day, something new happened. One Saturday morning, Ethan walked into the living room holding his phone. "My boss wants everyone at work to finish a big project by Monday," he said. "That's a lot of work," I replied. "It is." He sat down with a long sigh. "If you didn't ask me to help around the house so much, I would have more energy." I looked at him in surprise. "I only asked you to take out the trash." "You always need something." "I didn't mean to bother you." "You never think about how tired I am." I lowered my head. "I'm sorry." Again. Those two words came out of my mouth before I even thought about them. A few weeks later, Ethan came home earlier than usual. He looked upset. "My company is making changes," he said. "What happened?" "They cut my position." I felt my heart sink. "Oh, Ethan, I'm so sorry." Instead of accepting my hug, he stepped away. "This wouldn't have happened if our home wasn't so stressful." I froze. "What do you mean?" "You always have something to complain about." "I don't complain. You ask questions all the time." "I only ask how your day was." "Exactly." His voice became cold. "I don't need another person judging me." I stood there without speaking. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I really did make his life harder. That evening, I opened our savings account on my laptop. We had planned to save enough money to buy our first house. I smiled when I remembered looking at beautiful homes together, but my smile disappeared. Our balance was much lower than I expected. Almost $15,000 was gone. My hands began to shake. Maybe I remembered the numbers wrong. Maybe I made a mistake. When Ethan came into the room, I asked carefully, "Did you use money from our savings?" He did not even look surprised. I had to. For what? Personal expenses. $15,000? He crossed his arms. If you didn't spend so much every month, I wouldn't need to touch our savings. I stared at him. I hardly buy anything. You always order groceries. We need food. You could spend less. I looked around our small apartment. Our couch was 10 years old. My phone had a cracked screen. I bought my clothes from discount stores. There was nothing expensive in our home. Still, his words made me question myself. Maybe I wasn't careful enough. Maybe I should spend less. Maybe I really was wasting money. The next weekend, Ethan invited his parents for dinner. I worked all afternoon preparing the meal. I roasted chicken, baked potatoes, and made my mother-in-law's favorite apple pie. When everyone sat down to eat, Ethan smiled. I hope you enjoy dinner. His mother took one bite and smiled warmly. This is delicious. Before I could thank her, Ethan laughed. Lauren almost burned the chicken. Everyone looked at me. I didn't burn it, I said softly. It was close. His father chuckled. You need to watch her in the kitchen. They laughed together. I forced myself to smile. Inside, I wanted to disappear. Later that evening, while I washed the dishes, I heard Ethan talking to his parents in the living room. I try my best, he said, but Lauren worries too much. His mother sighed. Marriage isn't easy. I know, Ethan answered. Sometimes I feel like I carry this whole family by myself. I stopped washing the plates. My hands became still. Was that really how he saw our life? I worked full-time. I paid bills. I cleaned the apartment. I cooked every meal. Yet somehow, he believed he carried everything alone. Or maybe he wanted everyone else to believe it. The following Monday, Melissa found me sitting alone during lunch. You've barely eaten, she said. I'm not hungry. She sat beside me. Lauren, can I ask you something? Of course. When was the last time your husband thanked you? I opened my mouth. No words came out. I searched my memory. Last week, last month, last year? I couldn't remember. Melissa looked at my face and quietly nodded. I think you have your answer. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Dark circles were under my eyes. I looked older than 31. I whispered to myself, try harder. It was something I told myself every day. Be a better wife, cook better, smile more, talk less, spend less, make fewer mistakes. Maybe then Ethan would be happy. Maybe then he would stop blaming me. As I walked past the living room, I noticed Ethan sitting on the couch. His laptop was open, but he quickly closed it when he saw me. What were you looking at? I asked. Nothing. You closed it really fast. He frowned. Why are you spying on me? I'm not. You never trust me. I felt the familiar weight fall onto my shoulders. I'm sorry. He walked past me without another word. A few seconds later, I heard the apartment door slam shut. I stood alone in the silence. I did not know where he was going. I did not know why he had become so secretive. But for the first time, Another thought entered my mind. Maybe Ethan wasn't hiding something from me. Maybe he was hiding the truth about himself. After Ethan left that night, I sat alone on the couch for hours. The apartment was quiet. I looked at the closed laptop on this coffee table. Part of me wanted to open it. Another part told me that a good wife should trust her husband. I walked away, but something inside me had changed. For the first time in years, I stopped asking, "What did I do wrong?" Instead, I started asking, "What is Ethan hiding?" The next morning, Ethan acted as if nothing had happened. He smiled. "Morning." "Morning," I answered. He kissed my forehead and grabbed his coffee. "I'll be home late tonight." "Working?" "Yes." Then he left. I watched him drive away. Something did not feel right. That afternoon, I called his office. I only wanted to ask if he could pick up some medicine on his way home. A woman answered the phone. "Good afternoon." "Hi, may I speak with Ethan Brooks, please?" There was a short silence. "I'm sorry," she said kindly. "Mr. Brooks hasn't worked here for almost 3 weeks." My heart stopped. I think you have the wrong person." She checked again. "No, Ethan Brooks left the company earlier this month." I thanked her and slowly hung up. My hands were shaking. 3 weeks. Ethan had left his job 3 weeks ago. Every morning he dressed for work. Every evening he came home pretending to be tired. He had lied to me every single day. That evening he came home smiling. "Long day," he said. I looked at him quietly. "How was work?" "It was fine." Another lie. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream. But instead, I simply nodded. "I made your favorite pasta." He smiled. "See? That's the wife I like." His words hurt more than ever. The next few days, I paid closer attention. He spent hours outside the apartment. He answered phone calls in another room. If I walked in, he ended the conversation immediately. Then, one Friday afternoon, everything changed. I was organizing our mail when I found an envelope hidden under a stack of old magazines. It was addressed to Ethan. Inside was a notice from a bank. The words were impossible to ignore. Final notice. Past due balance. I turned the page. There were several credit cards, personal loans, late payment fees. The total amount was over $40,000. I covered my mouth. We had never talked about these debts. Never. When Ethan came home, I placed the papers on the dining table. "What are these?" His face changed for just 1 second. Then he frowned. "You went through my things?" "I found them in our mail." "You shouldn't snoop." "Ethan!" My voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to." "When?" He looked away. "I don't know." "Did you spend our savings paying these debts?" He stayed silent. "Ethan!" Finally, he answered. "Yes?" Tears filled my eyes. "Why?" "I had no choice." "What did you spend the money on?" He rubbed his face. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." For the first time in years, I raised my voice. He stared at me in shock. Then he pointed his finger at me. If you didn't pressure me all the time, I wouldn't have made bad decisions. I could not believe what I was hearing. My fault? You always expected too much. I expected honesty. You stressed me. No, Ethan. I took a deep breath. You lied to me. He turned away without answering. The next morning, I visited his former office. I needed the truth. Melissa offered to come with me, but I wanted to do it alone. When I arrived, Ethan's former manager welcomed me into his office. I don't usually discuss employees, he said gently. But I can tell you're trying to understand what happened. I nodded. I only want the truth. He sighed. Ethan wasn't fired because of budget cuts. My heart pounded. He missed work many times. He often arrived late. And he lied about completing important projects. I closed my eyes. Everything Ethan had blamed on me, his stress, his mistakes, his lost job. None of it had been because of me. The manager looked at me kindly. I'm sorry. You seem like a very caring person. I whispered. I kept believing I was the reason. He shook his head. Sometimes people blame others because they can't face their own choices. As I walked back to my car, tears rolled down my face, not because my marriage was falling apart, but because I finally understood something that had taken years to learn. I had spent so much time trying to fix myself, when I had never been the one who was broken. For the first time in a very long time, I stopped blaming myself, and that changed everything. That evening, I sat alone at our dining table. The house was silent. In front of me were the bank letters, our savings records, and a small notebook where I had written every bill we paid over the past 3 years. For so long, I had believed I was the reason our life was falling apart. Now I knew the truth. When Ethan came home, he smiled as if nothing had happened. "What's for dinner?" he asked. I looked at him calmly. "We need to talk." His smile disappeared. "What now?" I pointed to the papers on the table. "I know you lied about your job." He froze. "I know you used our savings." He stayed silent. "I know why you were fired." His face turned red. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Ethan sighed. "I made some mistakes." I waited. He did not say, "I'm sorry." Instead, he looked at me and said, "If you had supported me better, I wouldn't have been under so much pressure." Those words were enough. After everything, he was still blaming me. I felt something inside me become very quiet. Not angry, not afraid, just finished. I stood up. "No, Ethan." He looked surprised. "I didn't lose your job. I didn't spend our savings. I didn't tell those lies. You made those choices." He shook his head. "So you're giving up?" I looked into his eyes. "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing myself." That night, I packed one suitcase. Not because I hated Ethan, but because I finally loved myself enough to leave. I moved into a small apartment across town. It was not fancy, The kitchen was tiny. The bedroom had only one window. But when I closed the door on my first night there, I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. The first few weeks were difficult. Sometimes I cried while eating dinner alone. Sometimes I missed the good memories. Because there had been good memories once. But every time I started blaming myself again, I remembered the truth. Love should never make you feel guilty for someone else's choices. Melissa helped me through those hard days. She invited me to lunch. She called every weekend. One afternoon she smiled and said, "Lauren, you laugh more now." I laughed again. I guess I do. A few months later, I received divorce papers. I signed them without shaking, without crying, without fear. It was the easiest decision I had made in years. Life slowly became brighter. I started reading books again. I planted flowers on my apartment balcony. I visited my mother more often. The woman in the mirror began to smile again. One Saturday morning, almost a year later, my phone rang. It was Ethan. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hello?" For a few seconds he said nothing. Then I heard a quiet voice. "Lauren, I'm sorry." Those words surprised me. He continued, "I lost everything. I couldn't keep paying my debts. My parents know the truth now. My friends stopped believing my excuses. I blamed everyone." His voice broke. "But the person I blamed the most was you." I closed my eyes. For years, I had dreamed of hearing those words. Now they did not change anything. "I'm glad you told me the truth," I said softly. "I wish I had listened to you." I smiled sadly. "I wish you had listened to yourself." He was silent. "Can we start over?" he finally asked. I looked out the window. The flowers on my balcony were moving gently in the summer wind. For the first time in years, my heart felt light. "No, Ethan. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean I have to come back." He quietly whispered, "I understand." When the call ended, I did not cry. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee. I stepped onto my balcony and watched the sunrise. The world looked different, not because it had changed, because I had changed. Today, when people ask me what I learned from my marriage, I always give the same answer. If someone blames you for every problem, every mistake, and every disappointment, stop asking how to become perfect. Start asking whether you are carrying a burden that was never yours. Love should bring peace, respect, trust, and kindness. The day I stopped accepting blame for someone else's choices was the day I found my voice again. My name is Lauren Brooks. This is the story of how I lost my marriage, but found myself, and that was the greatest gift I could ever receive.